You're
recording us now? Great, now we have to stop talking about coffee. I'm so happy to see you guys. We need to get together. We'll have to do a little. We're gonna do something fun, like a concert or something. We don't have to do a concert. We actually got Olivia Rodrigo tickets. Yes, we got to go. Why did I realize she was such a big deal? Somebody said her tickets were $7. They were absolutely expensive, and I'm like, we're not doing this. That line for the merchandise is insane. Yeah, no. Yeah, she brought her daughter and I brought my daughter. I didn't realize like what it. Cause Bert's like, I'm like, let's go. You walked up to the, and the line was like out to the parking lot. It was insane. But it was fun. She's crazy. She thinks like she's angry at men. Very angry. Like every song she changed a lot. I used to really like her, and then that little era. Yeah, I think she knows that. Yeah. She's not a message on it. I mean, my girl could be like for a little bit. I know, like this is not. And she Disney. Like, it's good. Yeah. We're taking the girls to Sabrina Carpenter. I love her. She's so funny. Yeah. So she's coming on the what is it, November 1st. What's her name? Paul Arena. I love her. I love her too. Oh my gosh, I love her way. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get because we don't have those. What class is starting? There's a divorce class that Mitch is doing. I don't know if it's now or at 11. You think so? Well,
Let's see. Over Denver. That's what they call it. Yeah.
Still on a scooter, so she's recovering from that. No idea where shocking. You're gonna make it start doing this. Yes. Burn. Yeah. Take the
so when I was wondering, honestly.
You joined?
Yes.
What you do?
Make sure I have so many credits. Last year, I took Kevin's contract class twice. They kicked it back to. One class was the first half, and the second class was the second half. Because I don't remember saying that same class twice. It was named the same. So the commission was like, no. That was That was a fun call on July 5th. Hey.
You even remember the day,
Suspend your license.
a day that will live in infamy.
Yeah, that's right, my brain, right?
It's funny how you remember certain dates.
No, absolutely.
Oh. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a membership to Highland Lake, no?
No, I don't.
You don't. Does anybody want to follow?
Does what?
Does anybody in your neighborhood?
Oh, yeah, a lot of it.
Okay,
Heidi does.
So-
The house I sold does.
that's right.
The neighbors on the other side of me do.
So did the people you bought your house from?
They didn't have one. And he had only lived there a little over a year.
So I was telling Katie, and I kept forgetting to tell her, it was probably 2 weeks ago. I was driving down Eldridge, because I cut over Eldridge to go to St. John of Arc.
Yeah.
So right there in between the lake and Candlelight and Wyndham.
Yeah.
It's Eldridge, right? Is there Eldridge?
Eldridge.
Yeah, and there was a lady putting out a sign that she had handmade, and I could vaguely read it, but she had another one at the top of the hill as you're headed south, and it said, members,
Hidden Lake.
Hidden Lake meeting.
Oh, there was a meeting.
She had a couple dollar signs on it. that said
Yeah, there was
dollars.
one in our subdivision, and they had the meeting right behind my house.
So, but her signs were gone the next morning, and somebody went out and yanked them down. She was putting them out, I was watching her put them in,
Huh.
and they were gone the next morning, so, do you know what it's about? It's,
They were just having their yearly meeting about memberships, and they've been talking about maybe opening up a few other memberships.
her sign, gosh, I can't, but it alluded to, monetary, issues we're gonna be discussing.
Yeah, that's what the sign said in my neighborhood.
So you said, so I was curious, are dues going up, or are they gonna open it up to more people so they can potentially go down? Cause Kate had that deal.
It's not expensive. You know?
Did Katie tell you about that whole thing with buyers and sellers and the post occupancy and everything? And, our people were pissed, but we're like, what do you want us to do? Call the HOA,
It's the way it is.
you don't own the home anymore.
Yeah, it's, you know, own the home. And by the way, when you closed on the other home, you own the refrigerator and it's your.
So it was that, and they claimed there were stains on it. And my guys were like, there were no stains, like that wasn't. And I said, well, let me go back and look at our listing plan, because you can't tell. So yesterday, I was like, oh, let me check the 3D tour, because you can go in and like.
Look down.
On the roof. I sent it to the agent and I said, listen, the refrigerators, there's, I'm sorry, they weren't happy with the condition. And there were a couple other things, but they were clearly there ahead of time, so I'm sorry you guys were happy with the condition.
It's working the day of closing, it's yours.
And here's a picture of the stain, and she responds with, send me your client's Venmo and I'll send the deposit. Oh, come on, like, your clients should be sending the deposit back, not you. So she's taking it to that level of we're being so petty that I'll just pay for it. It's like, I don't want that. If she was good to work with.
That's too bad.
I hate those schools and occupancies. Those things just make them not people.
Yeah, they're, like Damien says, you have post-closing occupancy, you're gonna have a problem probably.
Correct.
And somebody's gonna be pissed about something. I mean, just like the one that Fort, Sue Menzel has with the basketball hoop that wasn't there supposedly.
Oh,
And they had 13 offers on it, and, oh my God, you should read some of this buyer's emails, our buyer,
her buyer?
her buyer, oh my God.
She wanted
She
that,
just-
wanted the basketball.
So they had post-closing occupancy, the seller was wise enough to say, hey, the laws have changed and I'm not paying rent and you can't charge me for any kind of damage deposit. So then Sue and, what's her face with Remax over They said, well, we'll each put up 2,500 and Damian said, you're gonna lose your 2,500.
Yeah.
I can guarantee it. And so they put up the 2,500 each. And then
Sue and the agent did?
Sue and, what's the owner of Remax or the head of Remax over here?
Alliance over here, like Nikki or?
Yeah, Nikki. Yeah. She said there's, you know, their basketball hoop's gone. Well, it blew down before they went on the market and they just got rid of it. They told people we'll put one back up or
Was it one of the?
they never heard that.
Or was it like cemented?
It was built in.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those poles into the ground. So Sue got a quote for right at 1,000.
I looked them up, that's about what they are.
This lady says it's 3,800.
With labor and install and,
No,
oh, really?
Sue got it installed for like 1,080
Oh, really?
or something. Cause it's already there. All you have to do is put in another pole and put up the thing.
Do you have to dig a new hole?
The hole was there.
There's not, it's not full of concrete.
No, it was a post. It was a pole.
Oh.
And the post went down inside. The sleeve went down inside.
Got it.
And yeah, she said it's 3,800. So then, Sue said, we'll each give 1,000, we'll each give 500, that's 1,000. Nope, not gonna do that. Then Sue said, okay, I'll give, she just kept going, I'll give 2,500, I'll give my half,
Right.
and you can go after her. Nope, that won't work. So Damien said, she's gonna file a complaint, so just, and by then Sue was so mad, she said, screw it,
I'm not gonna
come after me.
Yeah.
I've had it with her.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And she was, oh my God, if you had a conversation with her, she was so nasty.
No.
And her texts were like this long and her emails were like this long
Over a basketball.
over a basketball. And, you know, then Damien didn't put up with any of her crap because she emailed and said, you know, you need to do this and this, and he goes, no, we don't need to do this and this. And you have an exaggerated quote for something that's not even close to the same type of basketball hoop that was there.
Right, she probably wants to upgrade it.
Yeah, it's like, it comes with LeBron James too.
People's,
God.
some people's expectations.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's sad. So,
So I wonder, we have one coming up on 77.
yeah, right, I saw that. That's nice.
I would imagine if we should get multiple offers on there, we discuss.
No, I need to know
I don't
about
know, that there propose some help. Suggest a 45 or 50-day close and you keep their last deadline.
To keep it clean and easier, I don't know. You know, it's just everybody wants something.
I'm just trying to think, what do you run into with that? I mean, if you keep their loan deadline at 25 days, like you typically work.
Your people need time after closing?
They can see the benefit, they're waiting for a home to be built, so they're gonna have to go.
Yeah.
Rent or something like that, and I sat down and told them and said, hey, let's market this right, let's go into this, but we come up and give you a rent back at a good rate. We do it, but. Yeah, you know, it's always that thing in the back of our head.
No, I get it. It's always a challenge.
Like that yesterday said, because I sent him the screenshot, and the screenshot was a text from buyer to her agent. Well, the house was dirtier than we thought, and then this happened, and I just told you guys we should get it back. And I sent it to my seller, I sent it back, he's like, there's not a way to do that, so I said, there is. He said, but it's, he said, she said, the stain wasn't there, the stain was there, how do we prove it was?
Yeah.
You know,
You can't, unless everybody gets together and you all go through the house at the same time and you video. Nobody's here to do that.
yeah, nobody thinks so.
You had that other one that had a problem in Allendale, right?
That's right.
That's good. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we suggest a 45-day close or. But I want to make sure that there is some sort of
Well, and if you have multiple offers, you get a lot of interest. You can kind of guide things to be hopefully to yourself.
And that's what we did, and that's why I limited to.
But the experience.
But could you do, there's not a minimum on that rent back fee. You can do it for $25 and still collect the deposit or.
There has to be compensation for rent. Doesn't, I don't think there's a minimum.
There's no minimum in.
I don't think so.
In regards to. It's called danger, saying, you know.
I think you just have to have compensation for a rental.
There is something to say this hot.
They are. I get a bottle of water.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Let's get it out. Hey, easy, we're having up. See, I got to.
Like,
No, Katie's gonna come in, she'll be here.
it's like people, we try to give you some stuff to help you here. And you have people who are experienced coming here.
I mean, I don't coaching for.
I don't know if I'm saying, but say for a few.
It's a large. A large chunk of our office count.
Yeah.
A lot of them feel they just need to do Margaret's stuff, and nothing else.
Well, that's what they think.
What are you guys doing in here?
A class.
Well,
We have a class before your class.
let's get it warm the bus.
We're classier than you.
Yes.
My partner Jody will be doing it. I'll be here, but she'll be doing it because she put it together and got CE certified.
Next is gonna teach a class on real estate and divorce. Okay.
I'll be doing the next one, and also the next one. I've seen her present it twice, I just want to get comfortable with them.
I've been to Carla Kites.
You what?
I've done Carla Kites.
Oh, okay.
And she's good.
It's really good.
It's a huge thing.
It is a huge thing. It's an accident, unfortunately, but it's doing it correctly makes a difference.
I could have used it twice.
Rachel was, my heart is very here.
Rachel, can you let me know if you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll wait a few minutes to hopefully get 3 or 4 more.
For today. Charles was here earlier, but not today, but he was here last. But Elizabeth's out, yeah.
You guys are gonna be baseball tonight? I can't remember.
Yeah, unfortunately, you guys as kids like today, when you're both working.
They're the same John Markets. Yeah, they continue their, they transitioned into more like the summer.
Sure.
Still learning stuff.
Yeah.
They go on a field trip every week. They have a new theme every week, so they followed up with a field trip like a couple weeks ago. It was like in the sea and it was the aquarium.
Yeah.
This week's all art, they're in the art museum on Friday. But then, the ELC is preschool, pre-K, and kindergarten. Those are the 3 levels.
Yeah.
So Leo started over there and he did pre-K. I think he did pre-K twice. Maybe he did preschool, pre-K. And then he goes to kindergarten. He was kindergarten last week.
Yeah.
So Delaney's still over there. But this will be the last year that he opened over. summers.
Got it.
I don't know what we're gonna do next summer.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna pull both kids out. And what we pay over there, we should be able to.
That's basic.
Huh? Get out of here.
So, what about you
Yeah,
guys?
you guys will get, you guys are all best friends.
Yeah.
You're all hunkered down.
You know, all I can say, I can go.
That's what we're sitting there.
Right.
I'm sitting there, what do
Well,
you,
then shut up. I'm doing your class.
no before you go?
Okay,
About 16.
This should drive.
Oh,
Yeah, let's talk about.
she can get she wants it.
Me, careless, no.
so what are they?
No, we're finding that they will
It's
schedule.
Margaret Hall.
They said they didn't end up boys is like just kind of out there, and so I kind of thought like, we're just, you know, it's kind of, yeah. It's just put
Me,
people's
Taylor,
schedule.
yeah, I got the email, what's this flat and down page. And I'm like, well, when I said to Margaret, I said, well, why don't we talk about the case I'm not gonna.
That's, you know.
Well, the
So, I mean, it's all.
wrestling comes around, boys do
So
wrestling.
it makes them look better.
And if we can help
Sure.
They're paying.
I know, because my girls, we just, I didn't have to start dancing. The place called
This year, they're money, 11% left.
Takes an hour.
You've only put
to get
in
there.
5% more.
And then $5 on the extra. Then you have to do. But you don't have to.
And I explained to him, he was like, but, and I tried to use my spelling, like, I'm learning to like just pause without saying there. And I said, well, how is that fair that I have to do this? I said, that's.
It's a short time in my life.
I have, I have like my own computer.
No, it's a good time. It should.
But
2 more years.
I said, and then I just.
Oh, yeah, next hour.
14, so 16, 14, and you're at 7.
Okay, well, we really appreciate
No,
it.
it's all-
It's been awesome. We'll
I
talk
feel-
later.
My boys are getting short-handed.
And I'm still trying to talk to you on the other one, but
I'm trying to get that straight down.
the other side.
Okay. We'll start here in just a minute, guys. Okay, how many people do we have here?
Don't tell Ron, he'll be upset.
Rachel, Orland, and there's one more, from there, I don't see another. Okay, guys, you ready to start? No before you go? You can just leave, if you want to leave sound on, you can. If you have questions, don't hesitate to just jump on and yell, I have a question, because we're here to help you, help yourselves be more proficient in our business. So I don't know if you can see everybody here, but Casey is here to my left. You've been in the business now, how long? 3 years, 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. Over here is Jordan Kessler. Jordan, how long have you been in?
7 years.
7 years, and is a member of 1/2 or 1/3 of the team, or 1/5 of the team, or 1/5 of the Carol Kessler team. And they are one of the most successful teams in Colorado. So that tells you what you can do in a matter of 7 years, right? So, and I've been in the business 32 years and I don't do a damn thing. I just teach. No, I'm just kidding. I'm here to help you anytime, you guys. Whenever you have questions, don't hesitate to call me. I'll be glad to help you any way I can and give you information, whatever that might be. Okay? So anybody want to start with any questions you may have on a current deal other than yours?
I don't want to talk about mine anymore.
Okay. Rachel or Orland, do you have any questions on anything?
No,
Nope.
I'm fine right now.
Okay,
Thank you, though.
absolutely. So let's start with a strange one. We're going to talk about Orangeburg sewer lines. And you're like, why do we need to talk about Orangeburg sewer line? Have you done any deals with Orangeburg?
Is that different from a clay pipe?
Yep.
Okay, I have not, or if I have,
Yeah.
nobody called it out.
What do you call it?
This is a sewer line, and the reason it's called Orangeburg is because predominantly back in 1800s, later 1800s, because of the wars, they were running low on metals. And they hadn't really got in proficient at building clay pipe. So they made these pipes, and as you can see, they look like they delaminate. Well, they do. You know what they're made of? He said. Well, I just screwed up. Let me pull that back up. They are made of wood and paper, if you can believe it.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what can go wrong with wood and paper with a sewer line?
And water,
And they're put together with a tar, a black tar.
Oh, I heard of black tar.
Yes. And so these were put into homes basically between 1945 and middle 1970s.
wow.
So it's a very big deal, you guys, and I had no idea what they were when I first came across them in about 2000, right around 2000. One of the bank-owned properties I was listing with my partners. We had a sewer scope done for the buyers, and lo and behold, they said, hey, you have Orangeburg pipe. I'm like, what the heck is Orangeburg pipe? Well, it's a delaminating type of pipe, and you're gonna find it in many more places than you can imagine. So I don't know, Rachel or Orland, if you're familiar with some of the subdivisions around, but I've seen it in Arvada, in many different places, probably 5 or 6 places. I've seen it in, let's see, where else? Oh, Green Valley Ranch in the older homes. I've seen it in Montbello, and it was quite prominent, as far as I understand, in areas of Montbello, especially homes that were built in the very early 70s up there. I've seen it down in Littleton and Lakewood, and there's an area that's very prominent. Let me just pull up a map, and we'll get this. I think you guys can see a map from MLS.
Wow, how did you know it was Orangeburg pipe? Your inspector called it
The
out?
inspector called it out, and I'm like, okay, what's Orangeburg pipe?
Interesting. 'Cause
Yeah,
the picture you pulled up, I would say that looks like a clay pipe, because it's.
it kind of does.
Stuff to it.
It kind of does look like a
That's the
clay
tar.
pipe.
The
But
tar with the paper.
yeah, tar with paper and wood.
Tar,
It's
paper,
basically like an OSB board look to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they
guess on the inside.
cut a chunk out of it, and we looked at it, and it's like, huh, that's odd.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's quite prominent in Denver. And if you've never run across it, you've probably, if your buyer has bought a house and not had a sewer line inspection, it probably had it. If it was built in the 40s, 50s, 60s, very, very prominent.
Wood pulp silver, liquefied coal tar.
Sounds like it'll last for a long time, right? So there's many areas. One that is a very prominent one I wanted to show you guys is right around where Morrison Road cuts south. Let's see, where are we? We're at Mississippi. We gotta go south there. Can you guys see the map okay?
It's like on my Ruby Hill.
It's over by, well, and you can have them anywhere.
Right, I was just.
Yeah, I haven't seen one in Ruby Hill, but I'm sure there are some in Ruby Hill. Yeah, anywhere that they've made houses, built houses in the period of the 40s, 50s, 60s, early 70s, you're gonna find it. I'm gonna find it yet, you guys, I'm too far south. Here we go, so this is a very prominent area right here. Here's Alameda, here's Sheridan, and here's Morrison Road at an angle.
Ooh, I looked at a lot of homes in there.
There's a lot of homes in this area that have Orangeburg pipe. And even down into here, because you have a lot of homes that were built in that era of forties and fifties and sixties. So, I had a house listed down here last year, and there was the remnants of the old Orangeburg pipe, but they had replaced it with PVC. Fortunately, before my buyer had bought the house, but there was, old piping still in there, to the side of it. So we lucked out, but that means this area is very, very, very filled with the bad sewer line pipes. So when you're getting your buyers under contract and they're saying, oh, we're lucky to get this, we're only gonna do health and safety issues, first of all, don't ever write in your contract just for health and safety issues. It really doesn't mean anything. Just get inspections done so you protect your buyers. And this is one reason why when I list homes, I have the sewer line scoped ahead of time, just so I know for my sake. I have a seller right now who is an ex-real estate agent and didn't want me to get it scoped because he said, well, we'll just deal with it.
I was gonna ask you that, you getting pushback for people?
I got pushback from him. And guess what? We got under contract and guess what we just had repaired yesterday? The sewer line. So, and the buyers got scared and they left. So sewer lines are not as expensive as a lot of people think, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about. So I'm sure you've had some sewer line work done. The one I just had done, let me just pull up the house. So you guys can see. It's a nice home here in Arvada. Fortunately, we didn't have Orangeburg. But it's not uncommon that you have problems with sewer lines. They just, when they get to be in the 40, 50, 60-year range, a lot of times they're gonna have a problem. So the sewer line in this particular house comes out about here, underground, goes over to the driveway, and goes out to the street. Well, there was a break right in here.
Is this the one that they didn't want to scope and?
Yeah, my seller, ex-realtor didn't want the scope of it. Because he said, we'll deal with it. Well, yeah, we're dealing with it. So a lot of people would think, when you have a sewer problem, that a sewer line is gonna cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Well, it might be that much if the whole sewer line was bad and had caved in and was just a mess, or if you had like Orangeburg and you had to dig up the whole line and put in a whole new line, whatever. This line is going to, it did cost $4,200, okay? So again, the break was here in the middle of the driveway. They had to cut a hole and they were able to fix it and then pour concrete back into it. If you get out where you get into the street, then that's where it can become even more expensive, because as you'll see, like on that picture, if it was out here in the street, then they have to dig up, they have to use a certain soil, they have to, they oftentimes have to hire somebody to direct traffic, believe it or not. Yep. And all of that costs more money. So if this same kind of break had been in the street before you got to the main, then it would have probably cost more like $8,000 to $10,000, somewhere in that range. But as it is, because it's in the yard or under the driveway, we were able to get it fixed for $4,200. If it was in the yard, it might have even been a little bit less expensive, because you just have to dig up the yard and then compact it back and then put sod back in. But then you can run into the problem that you have with sprinkler systems. So, right, there's always something. If you see a house in old, say Denver, where you have an alleyway, then oftentimes the sewer line goes out back of the house and into the alley. And that's where the main is, out back. Not always, but oftentimes it is.
Same thing here in Old Town.
What was that?
Same thing here in Old Town.
Yeah, Old Town.
Homes east of Carr, because our house.
East of Carr, okay, that's good to know.
Our house on Kobe is in the front yard, in the street, and then everything east of there has an alley, so. If there's an alley and you're not sure where it goes, it's probably where it goes.
Yep, oftentimes. And another good thing to know is when a sewer scope by, like, I use a company called Sewer Diagnostics. It's $175 to get it scoped ahead of time. And it's, then, hey, we've got a good sewer line, you can then give that to the prospective buyers and say, we've had it scoped, here you go. We have no worries about it. Or if we do have a worry, then we can get it taken care of. So I had another house here in Arvada. Let's see. That I had it scoped. Lo and behold, it had a bad sewer line. And that's this house.
All those listings you have up.
Yeah. So this one, it came out the front of the house about just to the side of the door, because it's on a crawl space. And it went right out here through the dirt driveway. This is also their driveway, which is concrete. This is dirt where they park. And fortunately, this is where the sewer line ran through, so it was less expensive, but they had two breaks. They had a break here and they had a break in the street. So this line to repair was $6,200, okay? But they got that taken care of before we went on the market. And that way we were able to express to people, hey, we have a sewer line that's been repaired. And we don't have any worries. We also they went ahead and had a new electrical panel put in, because when I sold them this house 8 years ago, what was the first thing they were gonna do when they bought it? Have a new panel put in, and they never did. And oftentimes people do that. They'll say, yeah, we're gonna get that taken care of when we, get moved in.
Did you help them buy it?
Yep,
Did they get credit for the panel then?
they got some credit.
Okay.
They got some, yep. So they, they ended up having to do it. So they ended up spending about a little over $10,000 before we went on the market. But it also helped in knowing that the house was in good shape until we had a meth test.
In that house?
And this is the little house that had a
Oh.
meth, yes. Fortunately, it was in the kitchen, very minor, but it cost them quite a bit of money. And that's another thing that you maybe want to talk to your buyers about when you're showing homes is, especially if you're in an area where there's older homes, it doesn't really matter if any home, but one thing you can do is look up on public records and see, was it ever a bank-owned property? And if it has been a bank-owned property, you may want to strongly suggest to your people that they get a meth test done. Meth tests run around $500. That was with WeCycle, which is a company you guys have used, right?
Yep.
And the way you can tell here is if you look at public records, and this was only owned by 3 people the whole time. This is pretty much everybody, well, that doesn't go as far back as when it was first bought. But it was not a foreclosure, so he didn't feel the need to have a test done. Kind of burned us, but that happens. Anyway, you can check it on real estate, on the realist tax. And if you see that there has been a sale by the public trustee down in this area, where it might say public trustee sale, it was more than likely a foreclosure. And I highly recommend that if it's been a foreclosure, that you get them tested. And the reason I say this is because I was involved with foreclosures for about 6 or 7 years and looked at a lot of homes. And when I say a lot of homes, I did broker price opinions on about 1,500 homes. And my 2 partners also did BPOs on about that same number. So we looked at about almost 5,000 homes in a matter of 6 or 7 years. And a fairly modest percentage of, I'd say 20-25% of the homes had meth in it. Of which we would have the bank that was, had the foreclosure, they would take care of that before we took over the property. Okay? If your buyers have to take care of it after they've moved into it and go to sell, it's a much more, it's a big deal, guys. Because even this little house at 860 square feet, with a minor amount of meth was about $15,000. Okay? The agent who has a house under contract pays to have her buyers get a test done, and she's had about 20% of all the houses that she's sold in the last 15 years have had meth. And some have been so high that one house was $1 million+ house, and it was so high they just tore it down. You bring us books? Thank you. So, any questions, Rachel, Orland, anybody?
No,
Katie,
no questions.
Yes. Go ahead.
Katie's a part of a mastermind, and one of the agents in that group has started in the last year paying for mold tests for all providers.
Yep.
They're
Yeah,
relatively
but you're always
cheap.
gonna find mold and color.
You're not supposed to. That's the misconception.
That's-
You're not supposed to find mold in Colorado because it's so dry here. That's why most people don't.
My friend's thing said, do you wanna do a mold test? He said, if you wanna do a mold test, the mold's gonna come up.
Well,
Sure does.
Mold's gonna come up.
Mold
And
can
then
come.
you're gonna have to decide.
You're gonna have to decide if it's a dangerous amount of mold or not.
Exactly.
Another thing on a home we sold in Applewood, buyers did a lead test, not for lead-based paint, and Kathy mentioned this in Coffee Talk the other day. They did a lead test and there were dangerous amounts of lead in the tub. In the main floor bathroom, the tub had lead in it from however the tub was created, because it was a home in Applewood that was built in the 50s, so.
Yep.
So we had to negotiate that, because they felt, this is where our kid's gonna take baths, and it was a concern for them, so we had to address it, so.
You know where else you can find lead? In old houses? Hardwoods.
Hardwood floors.
The
It's the
floors, the stain that they use on the hardwood floors was oftentimes,
So then in that case, if you have it redone, you gotta have it redone. with, like, covered with everything, cover everything. Yes, you know, like with Matt, you're gonna have to put on a whole suit,
Asbestos.
but
and asbestos. So asbestos is another thing that I'm not sure if you guys are aware of. But asbestos can be in the popcorn ceilings that you see in houses that everybody dislikes. Or even in the joint tape for the walls when you're putting up sheetrock and in those areas. And that can show up as late as, I believe it's the late 70s,
The popcorn or the joint compound?
the joint compound.
Yeah, I think they stopped using asbestos and joint compound somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s, but you have to think of these big manufacturing companies that have pallets and pallets of that stuff. They didn't just throw it away,
Right,
they sold it.
they sold it when they weren't.
Selling
So, and asbestos can show up in a lot of weird places. You can have asbestos in floor tiles. Yep, and let me see if I can just pull up.
the black adhesive under those floor tiles, that's where it lies.
Yeah, we just, we, on our own home, just had an asbestos test and it was very, very reasonably priced, so.
Yeah.
That might,
What
that was
age
nice.
was your house? What age is your house?
It was, early 80s, but, we were removing the popcorn ceilings and just wanted to be doubly sure.
Good for you. Because once you release that into the air, you've got some serious problems if you're not masked up, and it can float around for a long time. So I can't find a picture of it, but
Had one where the ductwork was wrapped in it, but it's not.
the ducting, if you're in an older home, especially something with what they call a gravity fed furnace that looks like a giant octopus. And you'll see those in the old houses built in the 1800s, the early 1900s. they'll have these huge furnaces, and around the joints on the air ducting will be like a white tape, and that's asbestos. And if you go to mitigate that, it's not cheap. Have you done any of those? I haven't ever had anybody have to do that.
No, I scraped popcorn on the house one time,
Did you? Not knowing?
but I was redoing the floors, so I soaked the ceiling and sprayed it up and had no dust.
Okay.
But yeah,
So-
having it tested is,
An interesting story on asbestos. I sold a house in Evergreen, and the sellers advised us that there was asbestos in the popcorn ceilings. And they had tested for it. They gave an amount, what it was to mitigate it. They didn't want to do that. My people were fine with taking care of it. What they ended up doing is they put up old barnwood
Yeah.
wood on top.
the tongue and groove ceiling
The
over there.
tongue and groove ceiling, because it's up in the hills, and it was really pretty.
Yeah.
But when they retested, there was still asbestos testing. And there had been a small leak in the basement, and it had got some water on the floor. Well, long story short, when they had sprayed the ceilings with the asbestos, some of it splattered down on the ground, and it was under the carpet. And so when it got wet, the reading of asbestos elevated. Yeah. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, the way they spray that.
and also when they sprayed upstairs, some of it dropped on the floor. And that was reading to a higher level than it was allowed for asbestos.
Yeah.
So it can show up pretty much anywhere. And the reason I'm giving you guys this information is, you don't ever think that just because the house looks great and whatever, and they've done a great job with the fix up or, a fix and flip, whatever, you don't necessarily think it's been done correctly. Very important to find out if a fix and flipper has pulled permits for work that they've done, or a big thing is putting in new windows and scraping the popcorn ceilings. Did they have it abated correctly?
Right.
And if not, they're all gonna say, well, we're not gonna fill out any kind of property disclosure because we never lived in the house. So you just did $100,000 of work in the house and you don't know anything about the house.
Right.
Right?
Or it's been a rental for 20 years.
Yeah.
Never lived there.
I never lived there. It was a rental. Oh, so you never did any work to your house? Yeah, so you guys there's little traps around every corner, and you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
That you have to really be an advocate for your buyer. And if you're working with a seller that seems to maybe not be telling you the truth about things or wants to try, I've had a seller one time that said, well, we don't want to mention that I did a bunch of remodeling in here and I didn't pull permits, or I didn't do anything. Well, people are gonna find this out, and I ended up not working with him. I don't know what he had done with the house. I wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and if you're working with buyers, especially for us, if we're working with buyers that are eager and they love the house, but soon we move in, we're gonna take this wall down and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. That's great. Test that joint compound if the house was older than 1985, because once they go to pull permits, if they're using a contractor, he's gonna pull permits, and you have to use a demo permit in most counties. And a demo permit requires asbestos testing, and then all of a sudden they're on the hook for a $15,000 asbestos mitigation, and they want somebody to blame as to why their project just increased by $15,000-$20,000. So
yep,
if you have eager buyers that want to do a bunch of work to a house,
you don't want the phone call. Hey, Bob, remember that house you sold us?
yep,
Yeah, it had asbestos.
yeah, and you don't have to make them do it, but write an email and say, I recommend doing this if you're gonna tear stuff down, because here's what can happen. And
Exactly.
if they choose not to, then they only have themselves to blame, but unfortunately, this business has become CYA and everything. you do.
It has, you guys, and we're not trying to scare you, we're just trying to ward off any kind of issues after you've had a closing. Cause you don't want that phone call when people come back and say, hey, why didn't you tell us we should have gotten this tested? Or why didn't you tell us we weren't gonna just be able to knock down walls and without getting it tested and pull permits and everything, so.
Yeah, you want the call that says, hey, thanks so much for telling me to do that, and by the way, my brother needs a house, to buy a house.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have him call it, that's why we do it,
That's why we,
that's why you do it, you do the right thing.
exactly.
And what's the siding, can you hold a picture of the siding that's just.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, how's that weird?
You'll find this a lot in Commerce City, you'll find it in Aurora. You'll find it even in Denver.
Once you see it once, you'll start driving.
You'll know it when you see it.
That has asbestos.
Let's see. Asbestos siding, let's do this. Let's do photos. Asbestos. There we go. Typically always is gonna have some kind of texturing to it. This is a very common look, this wavy look. That's asbestos. Now, if you don't do anything to it, in other words, you don't poke a hole in it like this one, you're okay. But as soon as you intrude and break that siding, it can be a problem. I sold a house one time in Aurora that they had punched a hole through to put the evaporative cooler in the wall to come in through to the living room. And you could tell all that they basically did was kind of cut it, and they had just done this. And it was like, you know what, guys, we might not want to be in this house. Because I don't know if the asbestos is still floating through the airs, but this, the main one you see is this one with the, I don't know which, what kind of dress is that? With that kind of bottom?
You're asking me. A pleated dress?
Yeah, I don't know.
You have a top button, don't you?
I don't know. Anyway,
No.
this is very common, right?
I have a shirt with sleeves like that on it.
Do you?
No.
Oh,
It's her pirate costume shirt.
Fire costume. That
it's
is
very,
hilarious.
it's very common that it's got this wavy bottom to it. But, almost all, I've never seen one that was just a flat, smooth texture.
No.
It's always got some kind of a texturing to it or something.
They're out there.
Yeah, and they're out there in a lot of places. It's not just, oh, you're gonna run across it here and there. You go into Commerce City, older Denver, and Aurora, you're gonna find a lot of it, okay? Again, if you don't disturb it, you're fine. You can paint it. You just don't wanna be having it broken. You don't wanna be cutting into it or anything.
You don't wanna chew on it.
Don't wanna chew on it. Hear that?
Don't like it, don't like it.
Well, you
It
might.
was funny listening to Kevin talk about lead-based paint, because I just tell people don't chew on the wall.
Yeah, don't,
That's exactly what I tell
don't be
people.
paid.
Don't be chewing on
Don't
the
be
wall.
paid. Just leave it on the wall or something.
And that's another thing, guys, lead-based paint. It's, you know, if you don't disturb it, if you go into a house and you're just gonna live there, you're not gonna do any remodeling, you're not gonna cut holes in the wall. You don't need to worry about it. If you're going to have windows done, you have to be concerned with it. Because windows have been in there for probably, if they're original, they were in there since 1950. And when you pull those windows out, you're gonna disturb it. And if contractors that have been hired to do work to put in the windows, they have to be licensed in order to do that work with lead-based paint. And they have to make sure that when they do that work, that they put the yellow tape around the house, nobody's allowed in the house. And if anybody gets caught doing something that they're not supposed to and the lead-based paint police find it, they're in for a hefty fine. There was, my partner was doing a house, his rental, remodeling it. Windows had already been done in his house, but the next door neighbor was doing it and they did it. They had some guy come over and was just doing it. and didn't go through all the precautionary things they were supposed to. And bagging the windows, you have to bag them right.
Catch everything. Yeah.
That guy was fined $50,000, which basically put him out of business. So it's a serious matter. And the more things you can convey to your buyer about information like this, the more likely they're going to be wanting to make sure that they use you or refer you to other people, right? 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 Okay. All right. Let's talk about another little thing that can come up. Electrical panels. There's essentially 4 major panels that are an issue. Number 1 here is Federal Pacific.
I had my 5% homeowner's house.
I have one of our house in Cody, but.
It's
Fun, we're gonna put a new one in.
Yeah.
Zinsco, ZINSCO. Some Sylvania made Zinsco. And you kind of think of Sylvania as, it's a pretty well-known name that,
Light bulbs.
yeah, light bulbs, one that goes off. And then there's Challenger, and Challengers were recalled, and then Cutler Hammer, which is a very good company overall. But they had these panels, these Challengers that were recalled. I've only seen, I think, 1 Challenger panel in my career. But I've seen a plethora, how's that? A plethora of Federal Pacific and quite a few Zinsco. And if you have anybody on your team, my cousin is a electrician. When I'm out showing, if I see a panel that I'm not sure about or whatever, I can take a picture of it, send it to him. And while I'm still there, oftentimes he will just get back to me and say, hey, yeah, those, you know, they could have some problems, but those weren't like a Federal Pacific or a Zinsco as far as dangerous, okay? But it's good to become familiar with that, and you're gonna find Federal Pacifics all over the place, and Zinsco.
And from what our electricians told me is you can replace the breakers in these boxes without having to actually pull the whole panel, pull a permit, do everything. The actual breakers inside can be replaced. They're expensive, but they can be replaced, because the issue is these breakers, they eventually fail to trip.
Yeah, they're called stab lock
Yeah.
breakers.
They fail, that's what causes electrical fires, but at the same time,
Right.
I mean, how many homes do you hear burning
Yep.
because of these panels?
And when you're showing a house, and if you see a panel that looks like this with rust and everything, it's probably time to get it replaced anyway. You know, unfortunately, you know, a lot of people are amazed when they move here from another state and they find out, hey, your electrical panels are outside. Well, yeah, they tend to be, whereas back east in a lot of places, they're in the garage or, you know, an area that's more protected. Now, fortunately, builders are putting them in garages and then or in basements. You rarely see a panel outside anymore, which, as my structural engineer says, aren't houses a funny thing? We build houses so they sit out in the rain, and the worst thing that can happen is water intrusion. But that's the way the houses are. They're built outside, right? So electrical panels, I always take a look inside at them. You want to be a little careful, because once in a while there'll be a wasp hive inside of them, or a dead mouse, or a rat, or something. I have found in my career, I think I found 2 bats inside of them. So they get into them somehow. I don't know. It's amazing. Not that causes an electrical issue, but you know, you don't know what's happened to a panel, and that's why you want to get an inspection and have them at least look at the panel.
Right? And you brought up a great point, Bob, and it's something I always talk about is arming yourself with an electrician, plumber, an HVAC tech,
Everything.
get all these guys in your back pocket. Take them out to coffee, figure out what their favorite beer is, take care of these guys, cause all a home inspector is gonna do when you go to do your inspection is say, hey, I don't know about this panel, have it investigated further.
Mhm.
If you can jump in front of it and send a picture like Bob does to his cousin and like I do to my electrician. It's just gonna put your leaps and bounds above other agents that don't have the ability to do that, and you can tackle problems. Very, very quickly, because a home inspector is not gonna know anything about this, he's just gonna say, hey, have this looked at by somebody else, so you can,
Yep.
if you can do that quickly, it makes life 10 times easier.
They're always gonna give you the worst case scenario. They're gonna say Federal Pacific is known to be hazardous and get this looked at by a professional. If you've already told them that when they're looking at the house, they already know that. And, you know, they're still gonna be apprehensive somewhat, but at least you've given them that information and they can start thinking about it. They can look into it and do their own investigation on stuff. And more than likely, they'll, you know, if people have that information ahead of time, they'll start kind of figuring things out. They'll probably say, hey, you know what? We're putting $100,000 down on this house and we've got some extra monies. We're just gonna go ahead and budget and pay another 4, 5, 6,000, whatever, and have a new panel put in.
Yeah.
Whatever. Cause not every seller is going to, just because you tell them these are dangerous, most sellers are gonna say, well, I've lived here for 50 years and the house is still standing. Yes, sir, it is.
Yep.
And a lot of people are not gonna wanna change that, so you have to be ready for that, okay? Any questions on panels? Nope. No panel questions, okay. What's another thing that, has become an issue? Or that you've had an issue with, or you?
Rachel and Orland, are you guys from Colorado? Sorry, I don't know more about you right now.
No, I am originally from the East Coast. So
Okay.
Bob, you were right on with that electrical panel comment.
Yeah, a lot of people that come here from the east are like, why the heck are your panels outside?
You know, what I get from people from the East Coast is when we walk into a house with texture, they're like, what is this all over?
Yeah, what is this?
Yep. Exactly.
Um,
Yes, it's everyone that I've walked into, because we also, you know, I'd mentioned the popcorn ceilings. We just closed on ours about a month and a half ago. So when we were searching, it was I would tried my darndest to find a skim coated, you know, wall, but it was orange peel as far as the eye could see.
Knock down.
And were you from an area that more or less had boilers for heat? Got, you know, or forced air? 'Cause
No, we had forced air.
Yeah, forced
Yeah.
air, okay.
Mhm.
We have, you know, a lot of the older homes here have gas hot water heat or steam heat, which,
Mhm.
you know, they can be very good. It's just some of them, another house I had recently has the biggest, oldest furnace I've ever sold. Let's take a look at that. Let's see. Kinney. Close in the last 60 days. Oh, 1.1. Was it last 60? Yeah. Why is there it is? Okay, this is a house that I sold in Park Hill. It was built in 1929. And
That's a cool house.
it was a neat house. You should see the house I just bought in Tennessee. It's older than this.
There's some really nice homes in Tennessee. Well,
So here's the boiler.
depends, not all.
Looks like something out of,
Home Alone.
there you go.
Cool, actually.
And the ironing board.
It
And the iron-
works.
Well, you can put the iron right there, you put your.
This ironing board was patent pending in 1929. That's why I have it shown there. It has that written up in here. That's pretty cool. But yeah, that boiler was a big one.
And it works,
This gives you a better idea of the color and everything,
that's,
but it worked very, very well.
that's why we go back to old stuff.
It's, those boilers were kind of made to last for a long time. Whereas the newer boilers, yeah, they have lasted 40, 50 years. But they don't tend to last like this does. Now, this was originally heated with coal. Because this room over here had a window in it that would have had, so you could unload coal into this room and then dish it into the boiler.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting, and there were safety features on it that were interesting that never had seen before. So when you do show in older Denver and older areas, you're gonna find some things that are very different,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the reason why I asked Rachel or Ola, you guys are from Colorado, is one thing I always look at with buyers, are floating walls and basements. A lot of people in Colorado, that are from Colorado, don't know what floating walls are, why we have them, or how to assess them, because, you know, one thing in the back of a buyer's mind is how is this home structurally right now, right? Everybody thinks about that. So if you know what floating walls are and how to look at them and how to explain them, it's something, one, a lot of people, even people from Colorado are like, oh, I didn't know that.
How do you identify a floating wall when it already has drywall?
You can't,
You can from the utility room 90% of the time.
90% of the time, go somewhere where it's unfinished.
Go somewhere where it's
Make sure
unfinished,
the board-
if you can find like under the stairs is a
Under
common
the stairs, that's
place.
it too.
under the stairs. or-
So here's a house that didn't have any, that did not have any floating walls. Because they typically didn't start till what, 50s?
Yeah,
Late 50s, early 60s. But another thing you'll notice about the floors, they didn't have expansion joints put into the concrete. But back then, they were much more particular about how they poured concrete. And you'll find a lot of the older homes have very good flooring. This thing had not a crack anywhere in this floor.
That basement was pretty cool, actually.
So it is cool. And it had a laundry chute
It
right
was too
there.
expensive for me, I remember buying.
You were gonna do an open house with me and then they sold
yeah, you'll find, older homes where the floating floors haven't moved, and I've shown new builds that have been on the market for a year, and it's like, wow.
it. Yeah. So
That's just
what
cool.
Jordan's talking about a floating wall, what they'll do is when they frame it, if you could see here, they have wood, a bottom member, and then they put a spike through it and have another member so that this can move some and it doesn't affect the wall above. And
What
so,
happened in terms of it?
Pins are usually
But-
6 inches long, and then you can see
Yeah.
the gaps. They should start somewhere between 4 and 5 inches. I
Oh,
think,
what's that big?
to give room for.
The house, I just went through this whole, we didn't go through this whole rigmarole. They started one wall and they put, so they have kind of like a wall there already. And they put the wall out, because they gotta put insulation in,
Mhm.
but they didn't raise it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
But they
okay, here
haven't
we go.
finished it either, so you can still take it down and redo it. Yeah.
Here we go. So this is a floating wall.
Yeah, okay, so 6
Okay,
inches
so-
from there.
So this is treated lumber that's along the concrete. It's a little bit different color, it's greenish. And then this stud members are up above about 2 inches. And these nails are in here so that the floor can move and there's still a gap there that can move before it starts pushing on the wall and thusly pushing, because this is a basement, starts pushing on the wall up into the main level. And it gives you quite a bit of room. Now, if that starts to move that much, it may even move more and you may have to have the walls, you may have to have sheetrock taken off and have it reframed.
Yeah, so whenever I can find it in a utility room or under the stairs or a closet.
Yep.
I'm always looking to see if it's sandwiched or if there's room for it. Just one more thing to look at while you're there.
Yep. And most people from back east are gonna go, what is this? Because a lot of homes were built before this was ever even something. So you can see here, here's the bottom cord member. This is the floating system. And then so the floor could move a couple of inches before it starts to push on the floor joists up above and then starts to push on the walls up above there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you can't tell it if you can't find anywhere that it's unfinished, but you can usually find something. And we're probably gonna stop just a few minutes early here, you guys. Let's answer questions because we have a big class that's gonna be here right at 11. And I don't wanna cause them to be delayed. So Rachel or Orland, do you guys have any questions on anything we've gone over?
No, I
do-
don't. That was, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, you go.
No, I was just gonna say,
Okay.
I don't. That was super informative. Thank you.
You're welcome, anytime. And I'm not sure what we're gonna do. I think in October, I am gonna have my structural engineer be a part of this class. And we might make it a special 2-hour class. Because you can learn a tremendous amount from this man. I've learned more from him than anybody, just about structures and about the importance of drainage and everything to go along with it. And he'll be glad to answer questions. And he's presented with me once before, and he said he'd be glad to come back again. So look forward to that. And again, if you guys have any questions at all, give me a buzz. I'm happy to help you. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Great.
guys. Take care.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Mr. Serco you still work with?
Jim Circle?
Jim?
Yeah. He's a great guy.
We've,
I can call him up and say, here's what I have, here's a picture, and
we've found a structural company, they'll actually go assess stuff. for free,
yeah, that's what you said.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Well, Jim will work for free, and he'll do a report for like 400,
Yeah,
if you want to report.
yeah, Jim's great, I love Jim.
All right.
Hi, Phil.
Alright,
Hale.
How are you?
guys.
Hi, Casey. How come your car was going off? Did somebody try to steal your car?
Should go and see somebody hit it, huh? Your car?
Stick around.
Yeah, my alarm went off.
Her alarm went off. I
Oh, here.
thought they were stealing her battery.
So I get not that. And I like it, not.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious.